Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the real nitty-gritty of shop management. We're going to be looking at the exact systems and strategies you need to take a chaotic, completely reactive auto repair shop and transform it into a highly profitable, self-sustaining business. If you've ever felt like your business is just running you instead of the other way around, well, this explainer is absolutely going to change how you look at your daily operations. So let me ask you something right out of the gate. Are you a mechanic or are you a CEO? Because honestly, the reality for countless shop owners is that they are incredibly talented technicians who decided to open their own shops, but they never actually learned how to run a business. They can diagnose a misfire in their sleep, but they're trapped working 60 hours a week, just buried inside the bay, turning wrenches. It leaves them totally exhausted and frankly leaving an absolute fortune on the table. To help pull you out of that daily grind, we've put together a super clear roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The working owner trap, 2. The roots of scientific management, 3. The 5 core pillars of a thriving shop, 4. The financial engine, 5. People and culture, and then wrap up with 6. The 90-day action plan to actually implement all of this. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the working owner trap. Focus on the system. There is a really stark contrast in identity at play here. Over on the left, you've got the technician mindset. This focuses purely on the task right in front of you. It values technical perfection above everything else, and it measures success just by the raw number of jobs completed. But flip over to the right, and the CEO mindset requires you to focus on the whole system. It values process improvement, and it measures success by profitability and customer loyalty. The hardest transition for an owner isn't learning some new software. Actually, scratch that, it's literally shifting this identity and letting go of the ego boost that comes from being the best mechanic in the room. And here is the absolutely crucial point you need to hear. The shop owner who is in the bay is not managing the business. You might think, hey, by doing the work myself, I'm saving on labor costs. But in reality, when you aren't managing the business, your workflows are completely neglected. You are actually bleeding money long-term, often way more than whatever you're saving on labor, simply because the systems that drive true profitability are being totally ignored. Moving right along to section 2, roots of scientific management, a measurable science. Effective shop management isn't just a bunch of guesswork. It actually has a really deep history. Back in his 1911 text, Shop Management, Frederick Winslow Taylor completely pioneered the idea of systematic process improvement. He's widely considered the father of scientific management. And the crazy thing is, the exact same industrial engineering principles they used to separate average work from highly optimized work over a century ago, they apply directly to the workflow of a modern auto repair shop today. Just listen to this powerful quote from the foreword of Taylor's book by Henry R. Town. The dollar is the final term in almost every equation. The engineer is, by the nature of his vocation, an economist. What you should really take away from this is that your ultimate goal with all technical work, literally every repair, every diagnostic test, has to eventually tie back to economic efficiency. If you engineer a flawless repair, but it comes at a needlessly massive operational cost, well, you're kind of failing as the economist of your shop. Okay, let's get into section 3, the 5 core pillars. Organize shop chaos. Every single successful shop rests on these 5 interconnected domains: operations, finance, people, customer experience, and technology. Think of these like the foundational pillars of a house. They aren't separate silos. If operations improve, your financial metrics improve. If customer experience goes up, your people are way more motivated. Neglecting even one of these makes your entire business structure dangerously unstable. Now, zooming in on that finance pillar for a second, here is a metric every single owner has to know: the fixed absorption rate. This is the proportion of your fixed expenses, stuff like rent, utilities, salaries, that are covered entirely by your gross profit from parts and labor before you even touch variable costs. Your target should definitely be greater than 100%. Why does this matter? Because hitting that target acts as an incredibly powerful financial safety net. It means you can cover all your fixed costs without selling a single additional repair if the market suddenly takes a nosedive. Another totally critical metric revolves around your labor, specifically understanding flag hours versus clock hours. Clock hours are just the physical hours a tech spends in the building. But flag hours? Those are the hours actually paid out based on the book time for completed jobs. The big difference here is billable efficiency. Driving up your ratio of flag hours to actual hours spent on the job is literally the single highest leverage activity you can do for profitability. It's the difference between someone just keeping a bench warm and actually producing value. Which brings us to section 4, the financial engine, drive profitability. So many shops out there just pass parts through at cost plus some tiny, flat percentage. And man, they are leaving a massive amount of profit on the table. Enter the parts matrix. This automatically scales your markups based on cost tiers. So a low-cost $10 wiper blade, that gets a 200% markup, but a heavy $2,000 engine part gets a 30% markup. Remember, customers are paying for your expertise, your convenience, and the absolute assurance that the part is installed right. A matrix intelligently captures all that immense value. And hey, speaking of capturing value, I want you to really look at this number, 50%. Based on recent data, repair orders that are authorized digitally have an average value that is 50% higher than those that just get a verbal okay. 50%. So how do we actually get that 50% bump? The secret is digital vehicle inspections, or DVIs. Here are the exact steps. First, the technician performs a really thorough 35 to 45-minute inspection. Second, they take photos and videos of the issues. Third, they shoot that directly to the customer via text or email. And fourth, the customer digitally approves the repairs right from their phone. This totally transforms the conversation from a sketchy, trust me, your brakes are bad, into undeniable visual proof. Transparency builds trust, and trust dramatically increases your average repair order. All right, shifting gears to Section 5, People and Culture. Tackle the labor shortage. I really need you to let this hard data point sink in for a second. Technician turnover costs 150% of an annual salary. By the time you add up all the recruiting, the hiring, the training, and all that lost productivity, constantly replacing your highly skilled, prideful craftsmen is just astronomically more expensive than retaining the ones you already have. Because of that, retention is everything, and you pull that off through 5 main pillars. First, a fair compensation structure, whether that's flat rate, hourly plus bonus, or a guaranteed minimum. Second, a positive shop culture where people actually feel respected. Third, providing modern equipment and tools so they can do their best work without fighting the gear. Fourth, clear career development paths. And fifth, work-life balance. Get this, some forward-thinking shops are even experimenting with compressing hours into a 4-day work week. Giving your team a 3-day weekend every single week, that is a massively powerful tool to boost morale and recruit top-tier talent. And finally, Section 6, the 90-day action plan, chaos to control. Here is your structured, highly actionable blueprint to move out of reactive chaos and into proactive control over the next 3 months. In month 1, it's all about assessment and foundation. Figure out your current metrics, map out your workflow, and get your team on the same page. In month 2, we shift to implementation. This is the fun part, where you roll out those digital vehicle inspections and lock in your parts matrix. And finally, in month 3, optimization and scale. You build out a weekly KPI tracking dashboard to keep an eye on technician efficiency, and you continuously coach up your service advisors. And that brings us to the ultimate question, the one you really have to ask yourself today. Are you going to keep turning wrenches, or are you finally ready to step out of the bay? Look, the main difference between a struggling shop and a thriving enterprise really just comes down to systems, discipline, and letting go of that ego. It is time to embrace the CEO mindset and build a business that runs itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now, what's your very first step going to be tomorrow morning?